G'day you mob, Pete here, and this is another episode of Aussie English, the number one place for anyone and everyone wanting to learn Australian English. So today I have a Goss episode for you where I sit down with my old man, my father, Ian Smisson, and we talk about the week's news, whether locally down under here in Australia or non-locally overseas in other parts of the world. Okay, and we sometimes also talk about whatever comes to mind, right? If we can think of something interesting to share with you guys related to us or Australia, we also talk about that in the Goss. So these episodes are specifically designed to try and give you content about many different topics where we're obviously speaking in English and there are multiple people having a natural and spontaneous conversation in English. So it is particularly good to improve your listening skills. In order to complement that though, I really recommend that you join the podcast membership or the academy membership at aussieenglish.com.au, where you will get access to the full transcripts of these episodes, the PDFs, the downloads, and you can also use the online PDF reader to read and listen at the same time. Okay, so if you really want to improve your listening skills fast, get the transcript, listen and read at the same time, keep practicing, and that is the quickest way to level up your English. Anyway, I've been rabbiting on a bit. I've been talking a bit. Let's just get into this episode, guys. Smack the bird, and let's get into it. Dad.
Pete.
What's going on?
Not much.
I thought we could do one on retirement.
Yeah.
Seeing as you recently retired.
Well,
Mum's retired as well.
Less recently than recent, but yes.
Wow. Recently, all things considered, a few years ago.
Yes, now.
Do you want to talk about what retirement's like in Australia? Because it is one of those things that growing up here, you just take it for granted that this is the way that the world works. But
Yeah.
I would imagine that there are plenty of countries around the world
Where
where there
people
is no
just never
concept of
retire.
retirement.
Yeah.
Where you're always doing something.
Yes, or you work until you can no longer work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. I've heard that in China, I think they have a very early retirement age. I don't know if it's in particular for like factory workers or women, but I heard something, and again, you guys listening can probably tell me I'm full of it, but I heard something like the age of retirement is in the 50s compared to us, which is normally now, 65?
Well,
But is it moving up?
It's moving out for. It used to be 65, and then the Howard government 20 years ago
Yep.
pushed it out to 70, but they didn't do it. They shifted it slowly.
Yep.
So it was sort of
A year or
staggered. So somebody my age, born in 57, the retirement age was 67.
So depending on when you were born, that decided the retirement age?
Yeah, sliding up to 70.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So how did it work? Starting from like when you were a kid,
Yeah.
what do you remember about your parents and retirement or your parents' generation?
Yeah, well, parents' generation was, fathers worked, mothers didn't. Was the sort of, obviously there were some professionals and people who, women who worked in shops and things occasionally, but almost all my friends' mothers were unpaid work. Home duties was the typical thing put on a tax return. The expectation was that people would retire at 65, and there's no set retirement. Nobody's forced to retire. Typically, in government jobs, people would be encouraged to retire at the retirement age. But retirement age is just when you're entitled to an old age pension from the government, which is means tested anyway. So if you don't have a significant income, then you're entitled to an old age pension.
I imagine
which is just government funded.
It'd be related to not just superannuation or investments in terms of shares or whatever, but also how many assets you have. Like, I imagine you can't just retire with $100 million worth of property and be like, well, I don't actually make any income from this.
No,
so
your residential property is exempt
as
an asset. So you can have a
Wow, so you could have a $100 million
You could have a
house.
$500,000 house or a $5 million
Yeah.
house, and it makes no
Yeah,
difference.
and you get the pension, and that's it.
Yeah, because and look, the pension's not a lot of money. It's below the minimum wage.
You wouldn't be able to rent a house with it in most
It'd
places.
be highly unlikely. Yeah.
So it's sort of enough for what, food and clothes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? Probably 25,000 a year.
I honestly
give or
have
take?
no idea.
Yeah.
Honestly, no idea.
But okay, so when you were growing up and your parents had that retirement age, around there, did they have superannuation? Did they have some kind of equivalent?
They did. Most businesses didn't do it. Private businesses didn't have
As in
superannuation
their employees
paid in.
superannuation.
Whereas certainly, my father worked in a government job, and so he had superannuation. And when he retired, he went. My parents went on to a superannuation pension.
Yeah.
And then when my father died, my mother had the option of continuing that pension or taking out the lump sum. That is the current value of the money there. She opted to take it as the pension and keep
Drawing
it going,
down
just
from it,
drawing down on a fortnightly payment. But then I think it was Paul Keating in the early 90s as treasurer. In the Hawke government, might have been late 80s, or it might have been when he was Prime Minister, but certainly he made superannuation mandatory so that all employers have to pay their employees. At the time, it was a minimum of 9%.
Yeah.
Now that's gone up. I think it's now about 10%. It was supposed to go up to 12.
Yeah.
But of course, the previous Liberal government has said, "Oh, we're not going to back down on that, but we're going to delay it." It was intended. It was going to go up by 0.5% every couple of years to get to 12. But that was implemented. Well, that increase was implemented about 10 years ago, and it's still not anywhere near 12.
Yeah.
Some businesses pay more. I know when I was working at the university, they paid 17% superannuation.
Wow.
But it's all just considered part of your salary package then.
Yeah.
They're paying an increase in superannuation. So, it's not accessible income, but it's adding to your retirement nest egg.
Do you want to quickly sort of mention how it works? Because I'm sure a lot of people, especially if they don't live in Australia currently and haven't, researched this, wouldn't know what superannuation is.
Yeah, so basically superannuation is a mandatory saving for your retirement. And so if it's, as it was when I was at the university, 17%, or working for most companies, it was 9%. That 9% of your fortnightly salary gets paid into a superannuation fund. There are lots of them, and you can add to that yourself. It's called salary sacrificing, where you can actually have more of your salary paid into superannuation.
Yeah.
There's an advantage to doing that because it comes out of your pre-tax money, so you actually get taxed less.
There's contributions to superannuation are tax-free to a point.
Yeah, it's 15% tax, basically, you're paying on them going in. But but you don't pay that, your own, contributions are not, taxed. So there's an advantage to doing that, but obviously you've got less income at the same time.
At the moment.
So, and most superannuation companies have a rule that you can't take your superannuation out until you're 55. Regardless
I thought that was a government rule. Is that a
I think it.
rule?
Well, I think it's government rule, but there are. So anyway, it's 55. You can't take any money out of your superannuation until you're 55, regardless of your employment status. And you also can't take money out of it if you continue to be employed after 55. So you can't get to 55 and go, "Oh, I've got $500,000 sitting in a superannuation account. I'm going to keep working, but I'm going to take that $500,000 out."
Yeah.
It's only to be used to effectively fund your retirement.
Is it a way that effectively the government is trying to save money on pensions by having you effectively save up your own pension?
Yeah, effectively.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it for your whole life, your whole working life, let's say you start working at 20 and you go to 65, you've got 45 years of money being paid into a superannuation account. You should, by theory, have enough money to be able to have more than the pension when you come out. If you don't have a lot of money coming out of a superannuation account, like for whatever reason you haven't got much in there when you retire, then you are entitled to have part pension as well. You can get part. The old age pension is on a means tested sliding scale.
But effectively the government will match, well not match, but make sure that you end up with the same amount as the pension.
Yes.
So if you had like $10,000 in super and you're getting $100 or whatever, they would be like, well, we'll bump it up to what the pension is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But we're not going to give you the pension on top.
You don't get the pension on top.
Yes.
No. So
okay. So was that something that you thought a lot about whilst you were working when you were younger? Is it something that you took more seriously the older you got? Like,
well, it's
how do you prepare for retirement?
It's that it's always hard when you look at a proportion of your salary that is not yours, particularly when you're young. But at the same time, I always looked at it and thought, well, what are we going to need to retire on?
Yeah.
How much money do you need to retire? And when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's hard to predict what the economy is going to be like in 30 or 40 years' time.
Too long didn't read and we're fucked.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as it turned out, we got it pretty much right in terms of the assumption we made about how much we would need to retire.
And the amount you would get out. And the
amount that we ended up getting out. Because say we, because your mum was working from the time, well, she worked before you were born, and then after you were, had about 3 or 4 years off full-time work when your kids were little. But we ended up with enough superannuation to be able to retire on, and basically what we thought we were going to need.
Yeah.
So.
And you took a huge hit during the 2008 financial crisis too.
Every superannuation fund did. Yes.
Yeah, everyone in the world, right?
Yeah, because superannuation funds are not just like a bank. They're not just sitting with cash sitting there and doing nothing with it.
No,
they're investing it mostly in the property and share markets around the world. Now, depending on your fund that you are a member of, you can choose how you want your funds invested.
Yeah.
So
you can go green.
But you can also do it in terms of, do you want it invested aggressively, that is with the highest potential return, but there's the highest risk of getting no return.
The highest potential for no return.
And we always had a mixture between a slightly aggressive and a balanced.
Yeah.
So both your mum and I split our investment options with our funds to have partly growth and partly balanced, so that it was a little bit aggressive, but there was a fair amount of cash, which for a long time was earning very little. When we were down to 1% and 2% base in rates of return, then you're not making a lot of money, but at the same time you're not losing any money by the stock market crashing or whatever.
The volatility and everything.
The 2008 crash.
How much did you lose there percentage-wise? Well, what did that wipe off? Most superannuations?
I can't remember what it wiped off percentage-wise, but to give you an instance of the effect that had, your mum and I had always planned on retiring at 60, or at least having the money we needed to retire on by the time we got to 60.
Yeah.
The crash in 2008 pushed that out 5 years.
Yeah, okay.
It took us 5 years to get back to where we were in 2008. So by 2013, we'd caught up again. So it just pushed it out a bit. So it was probably about a 25 or 30% drop.
God. Frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. But
that's how it goes.
Life. That if we'd had people say, if you had it in a safer thing, all right, I could have invested all that money and put it in the bank, but it would have been growing for 10 years. It would have been growing at 1 or 2% a year.
Well, and if you imagine if you'd been
as opposed to 10% a year. For most years.
Imagine if you'd been retiring in 2008, 9 as well.
Exactly.
And you didn't have the interest or potential to be
all of a sudden
work
you
again to
retire, and all of a sudden and that could happen to us tomorrow.
Yeah. Because it's still invested.
Because what we've done, when you reach retirement age, you decide you're going to retire. Anytime over 55, you can do what you want to do with your superannuation. Typically, the options are you can take the money and run, So just
What does that mean?
Well, take the whole lot and do whatever you
You
like
can have
with
the money as long as you're jogging. Yeah.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, run. So you can take your money and do what you like with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can take your money and buy a pension from another private provider, or you can take a pension from the superannuation fund. So your money continues to get invested.
But you can withdraw a certain amount on a regular basis.
And so what we do is we take at the moment, and that's regulated as to what you can take out.
How much?
Yeah, the
okay.
minimum you can take out. So you can take more than the minimum.
Oh, okay.
But at the age of 65, which is what we were when your mother retired, and we decided to kick that in. Then we were forced to take out a minimum of 5%.
Yep.
Per year. Now, fortunately,
why did they do that?
I think the idea is that it's intended to be an income stream for your retirement. It's not intended to be a tax-free investment.
Okay, so that's what they're worried about.
They're worried about people going, oh, yeah, and there's also a limit to the amount of money you can have in a superannuation fund.
It's quite a lot, though, isn't it?
It's $3 million.
Yeah.
Well, it's 1.6.
Yeah.
While you're working.
Yeah.
And then after that, they bump it up. I think it's 3 million.
Yeah. Is that because you can have consolidate?
You can have 5 million in it if you like,
yeah.
but everything over the 3 million is going to be taxed.
Yeah. So they don't want people.
So they don't want people just consolidating their investments at their retirement.
$100 million
sticking it in there. It's all tax free, and I can take out whatever I feel like.
Yeah, gotcha.
As tax free income.
Yeah, because initially I'm thinking, why wouldn't they just have a maximum? Because you would imagine that the superannuation companies would be wanting to hold on to as much money as possible to invest to make their own profits, and not be like, you can take out as much as you want whenever.
Yeah, but that's a government regulation, the minimum thing. So, we take out 5%. I think when you get to 75, then it goes to a sliding scale up until you're 90, adding about 1% per year. So I think by the time you're 90, it goes up to about 14% or something.
So what has retirement been like? And what do you think it's like for the average Aussie? What does the average Aussie do when they get retired?
Well, I used to use the old joke with all my friends and colleagues who are starting to retire and saying, you got an assistant? Because most people, when they retire, end up being busier than they were when they were at work. Not busier in terms of the number of hours a day or a week that they're actually committed to things, but you just do more things.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that. Most people would say a 40-hour week, but most jobs these days are 38 or 37 and a half. But depending on the work you were doing, I mean, when I was working for 10 years for a private education technology company, notionally I was working for 38 hours a week, but I was actually usually working about 80 hours a week.
Yeah. Because it was just everything else. You're preparing at night.
You're preparing at night, and it was an international company. Head offices in Canada. We had in the Asia Pacific region that I worked in, we had people from India to New Zealand. So you've got about a 5-hour time span in. So
I know what that's like because my team are in India and the Philippines, and so I'm always like Kate, who's in the Philippines. She doesn't really clock on until about 8 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
She works in the sort of afternoon for herself, but for me, that's
exactly.
So I get messages at like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m.
and I'm ready to work.
Yeah, exactly. Can you do this? Can you check this? And you just get into that routine. But it is funny when you have to work across so many different time.
Yeah. So retirement for me was. Particularly, I retired semi-enforced retirement in a sense that because I had the knee injury.
You ate shit on a tram, didn't you?
Somebody else ate shit and fell on my leg.
Yeah, gotcha. They fucked you up. Yeah. The tram suddenly stopped.
The tram came to an emergency stop, and the person next to me
ate shit.
Just fell and landed. Hit my knee on the side. So. And that was going to take about 3 to 6 months recovery.
So it was like a tear of one of the tendons or something?
It was sort of major ligament damage, but not major enough to require surgery.
Yeah.
And as the surgeon...
It's almost worse.
Because I saw an orthopaedic surgeon, and he said, we could operate, but it's unnecessary.
And
you will recover.
Yeah,
it's about the same recovery time that you'll have. But he said, effectively, you're better off without doing it. You'll have a bit looser ligaments and a little bit more leg pain forever maybe, but you're better off without surgery. So I had that, and then a week later was in hospital with heart problems, which I'd had ongoing. They weren't life-threatening heart problems, but I went in with severe chest pain, and it turned out that the chest pain was not a heart attack or DVT, deep vein thrombosis, which was what I was most concerned about because I'd had my leg completely locked up for a week. But it turns out that, as you'd be surprised to hear, I was overdoing it on the crutches. So the chest pain was severe pain in the pectoral muscles and the intercostal muscles from the strain of getting up and around on crutches.
Yeah, it must be a bit of a shock, I guess, when you first end up on crutches because you'd be using muscles in a way that you wouldn't be used to.
Well, you're never going to use them that way.
Yeah, and so you would have, but your body would have to acclimate really quickly, and it's like going to the gym and doing the same exercise all of a sudden every single day. Cause you can't,
and
it's not like you're doing
into these
a few reps a week.
Severe spasms, painful spasms.
Jesus.
But so in the end, but I'd only been working in the job that I was in at that time for about 15 months. And so I ran out of sick leave, ran out of annual leave. And because I was working with a team of people and managing them and working with academic staff at the universities, at the University of Melbourne, face to face, it was one of those jobs that I didn't think I could do at home.
Yeah.
And so I just said to them, look, I don't really want to take leave without pay indefinitely and then just have you, because have them holding a position for 3 to 6 months without me being able to do it. So I just chose to retire, which was sad because I really enjoyed the job. The saddest thing was that was in September 2019. 4 months later, early February 2020, COVID hit, and then everybody was forced to work from home. So
you're just like, God damn it.
Exactly. So I probably would have still been working for a year or two. But in the end, I just looked at it and went, no, I'll retire. I did a bit of consulting work, a few little jobs and things after that. I, at the time, though, chose not to take my superannuation, just to let it run, even though I was not employed.
Well, this is because Mum was working, right?
Because
her wage
your mum was working, and we could live off one salary. But it meant that my superannuation could continue to grow. I wasn't going to be taking money out of it while we didn't need it.
Well, that's it. If you don't need it for anything because you've got know, enough money for food and everything, what's the point?
Yeah. So it probably in that 2 years before your mum retired, it probably grew by about 10 or 15%.
So when was the first generation that kind of got to retire in Australian history? Because I imagine that would have been our grandparents.
Yeah, probably.
And even because my memory of it is like Grandpa would have been a similar. Yeah, well, you were talking about at the start of this episode, right? Where the woman was a worker.
Yeah, they never retired.
Yeah, exactly. They're doing homework around the house. And the man was off, in some conventional job of whatever form. And my earliest memory of Grandpa was picking him up from the train from his engineering job, I think.
Yes.
Some of my earliest memories where Nana had driven out there and we pick him up off the train. And I think pretty quickly, though, like, I don't know how old I would have been. It would have been under 10. He retired, right?
Yeah.
He would have retired in his 60s.
Yeah.
And interestingly, like, you wonder if thinking about, like, the economic crisis we have in Australia at the moment, how much your generation or Grandpa's generation may have peaked in terms of like the amount of pay they got and the amount of savings they could get for superannuation and everything and the life they could lead. Because Nana and Grandpa have been retired for probably as long as they were working, right? Like they're getting close to being retired for 30 years.
Yeah.
Or in fact, Nana's, probably hasn't worked for about 60 years, maybe give or take. And so, at least, a conventional job.
Well, she went back to work when they bought the farm.
Yeah.
And to pay that off.
That blows my mind that she worked a few years and they paid the farm off.
Yeah.
You're just like, I can't imagine Kel and I buying a farm anywhere in Australia, some land. Yeah. Even if it was just
it was not a working farm. It's a block of land. We call it the farm.
Yeah, but still, it's sizable. It's not just a block of land that you would have a house on. It's 100 hectares or whatever.
56 hectares. But when they bought half of that and then bought the half later.
But they were in a position where a single wage could pay that off is mind blowing, right? Because I can't imagine buying land in, I don't know, say Bendigo today and being like, Kel, go back to work, go work a bit extra, and then we'll pay it off in a few years.
If you put a normal, an average salary, if you put an entire average salary into the equivalent of that land now, it would probably take you 10 years to pay it off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Whereas I think it took 3 or 4.
Yeah. Do you think it peaked at that point? Do you think you guys have looking at things now, are you sort of skeptical, or not skeptical, but would you say have a negative view of what it's going to be like in the future in terms of quality of life and what retirement will look like for us? Or are we just going to have to adjust the way that we live in the present, and then when we retire, we'll still be able to retire and still be able to do those things, but we may not have multiple properties and a large house that we live in? It's going to all just have to adjust to.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to predict what's, as I intimated earlier on, in your 20s and your 30s. It's hard to predict what you think you're going to need when you get to retire in your 60s. Yeah. I can't imagine what it's going to be like in 30 years. I think there will be I'm not an economist, therefore I probably know more. Don't have a high opinion of economists. For all you economists out there who are listening, please tell me what you actually do. I think there has to be an adjustment somewhere along the line, because at the moment, cost of living is almost entirely driven by cost of housing.
Yeah.
The cost of owning a house, whether you're paying a mortgage, or the cost of renting, is such a large proportion now of people's income and expenditure. Food's a bit more expensive than it has been in the past. That's an adjustment related to, where at the moment, we've got about 4.5% inflation.
Yeah.
Whereas for 30 years, inflation in this country was 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
I think there's open the rant bracket now. I think there's some gouging from supermarkets in particular on food pricing.
On that note, I couldn't believe that Aldi, and this is a free ad for Aldi effectively, if you go to Aldi and buy all the equivalent things, because they don't necessarily have the same products,
same brands,
you save 25% on average.
Yeah,
which is just mind blowing, right? And I think, for example, Kel, being Brazilian, loves powdered milk.
Yeah.
It's one of these things that, for me as an Australian, the only time I ever had powdered milk was when we were camping. Because you can't obviously
school camps.
You can't refrigerate milk, and you want to have your hot chocolate or your coffee or whatever.
Yeah,
and whereas
powdered milk and powdered potato.
Yeah, anytime I've been to somewhere tropical, like in Indonesia too, powdered milk was a huge.
Yeah, they can't refrigerate it.
I don't know. Well, it's just expensive, right? But so she's obsessed with it. It's like $10 a kilo. I think a kilo bag is about $10 at Woolies or Coles.
Yeah, and
they're the same. Aldi, how much do you reckon it is?
$6.
$1.50.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Kel found out and was just like, fuck.
We're shopping at Aldi.
I could get 6 kilos of powdered milk.
So you got 6 kilos of powdered milk. She still spent $10. But...
It's unbelievable. So there are certain things, that's a lot more than 25%, but that was one of those things where I was like, good God, we're getting the powdered milk from there.
Exactly.
From now.
And look, you can, and I think we've had this discussion before, I've got shares in Coles and Woolworths.
As you should.
As you should. Yeah, as my grandfather used to say, don't put your money in the bank, buy the bank. They're they're public companies, but they're a company that only has one purpose, and that is to make money for their shareholders. Yeah. Yes, all companies will say that, that we want to be environmentally friendly, we want to give back to the community and all that hoo-ha. But in the end, they're there to make money. Mm-hmm. The challenge, though, is that when they are making money at the expense of people who can't afford it, and there's very limited alternatives. Yes, you can go to Aldi or whatever, but...
I know, but I have to go out of my way to get there. It's a lot further. Woolies, and the crazy thing I think that came out...
I think the only Aldi on the peninsula is the one in Ocean Grove, isn't it?
No, there's one in Leopold.
Oh, there's one in Leo as well.
Yeah, but the crazy thing that came out when they were doing, I think it was Four Corners or whatever, was investigating the Colesworth biopoly or duopoly or whatever, was that Coles and Woolworths both buy land where you would otherwise put supermarkets and just hold it. so that no one else can buy it.
Oh, yeah.
So when Aldi tried to come in and expand further, and there's another German, I think, supermarket that tried to come into Australia, but everywhere that was a good place to set up a supermarket, Coles and Woolworths owned that land and wouldn't develop it. They just kept it in their portfolio.
I did some work for a developer, a property developer. I did a single photography job where in one of their developments, they'd put a wetland in rather than draining the swamp and things. They actually enhanced it, and they put bird breeding boxes and stuff in, and they just wanted some photographs of them and the birds around. So I did some work for them. But they showed me around. Their marketing person showed me around, and ironically, their marketing person was a consultant. He didn't work for the company.
Yeah, so he was happy to tell you all.
He said, I can actually tell you the real stuff here. I'm not trying to sell you the company.
My job doesn't depend on
exactly. But what they did when they bought all the land for the development area, and they didn't on-sell any of it to any commercial enterprise.
Yeah.
They
rent it.
No, they actually sold or rented the areas that they'd set aside as supermarkets to shop holders and things, rather than allowing those things, either Coles or Woolworths, to come in and buy the lot, because Coles and Woolworths will typically buy the entire thing.
Yeah, done.
And then they sell and rent the space to other shops.
Well, as if you wouldn't, and they're going to want to determine.
Of course, and that's fine. But at the same time, we sort of digressed here. But at the same time, you could look at it and go, well, they're there to make money. But when the price of fresh fruit and vegetables is a good example, because people always used to say, it's fine, stop whining about the price of things. When you're paying $6 for a bag of chips, you don't need to buy chips. Just go and buy a kilo of potatoes.
How many hours of work would that require?
You don't have to make the chips. You don't have to make the chips. Just buy potatoes. Don't buy processed foods and things. But when you look at it now, and the price of fruit and vegetables on the shelves in the supermarket, there's less than 20% of that money goes to the farmers who are growing it.
Yeah.
And you're looking at all the bits in the middle are profiteering off it.
Yeah.
and so
it's like the gold miner thing, right? Back in the gold rush in Australia, it was like, if you want to get rich, sell shovels.
Yeah, exactly.
don't be the guy looking for gold. Be the one selling all the middleman, effectively. But it's funny, the argument I would have is, I don't buy chips because I'm trying to sustain myself with healthy food. It's not I really need nutrition. How do I get the best bang for my buck?
I buy chips because I like it. Exactly. I like eating it.
I don't
eat chocolate for energy. I eat chocolate because it tastes good.
I want to watch a movie. I want to be depressed, and I just want to eat my comfort food and be left alone.
I know.
Unfortunately, it currently costs $6 a fucking bag.
I know. It's ridiculous. Buy popcorn.
Yeah. The kids love that at the moment.
Yeah, the microwave popcorn.
What is the average grey nomad's life? What's a grey nomad?
Grey nomad, yeah. So we're back to the retirement story. Yeah, we'll rewind, close the rant bracket, and rewind. Yeah, the sort of grey nomad stereotype, which it's an Australian stereotype, but I think it's common in Europe and North America as well.
Do you reckon Brits have grey nomads?
Yeah.
I guess you'd have to leave Britain, though.
Yeah, but see, they can travel Europe.
Yeah.
Even though Britain's no longer part of the European community, you can still travel in Europe. It's easy. Okay. So
I guess to explain, a grey nomad is someone who's retired and generally who has, at least in Australia, has a caravan.
Caravan or a
camper van.
A camper van or a recreation.
Like someone in this conversation.
Yeah, well, I have a van that I have put a bed in.
So you can camp in the van.
So I can camp in the van, yes. It is a very mini camper van.
That's it.
In fact, that's what I've spent the last week doing, is building a little console at the front of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And mostly these are people who either, the cliched, stereotypical grey nomad is someone who, when they retire, they'll either sell their house or take a significant proportion of their superannuation as cash, spend $1 squillion on a big caravan and a 4-wheel drive to tow it, or on a
massive camper van.
A camper van sort of bus, and spend their life driving around Australia. And look, you can do it in Australia because Australia's big enough that you could spend the rest of your life driving around and never see the same place twice.
Yeah.
And so you could do it if you lived in Hawaii.
Yeah, you're fucked.
I'm going to buy a car. And I'll drive around the island I live on.
Done the next day.
What am I going to do the next day?
I know, it is pretty crazy, isn't it? Like in Australia, you could we've got family that are currently on a sort of grey nomad expedition, right?
Yeah,
Bruce and Sandy.
Yeah, short one.
And they're
driving up through.
Is it a few months?
3 or 4 months, driving up through Western Australia.
I love how you say that's a short one.
Well, it is.
For me, at least as someone who's not retired, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
But it's short. Months? It's short in the sense that they're not typically grey nomads in the sense that they haven't sold their house, they haven't bought a monster thing. They've got a small back of the truck sort of camper. Mm-hmm. And they do extended holidays.
Yeah.
So they're away for 3 months driving
I see the photos. I'm jealous.
Western Australia.
The stuff they get to see. Are they in the Kimberley or something like that?
They're heading there. They're not quite there yet. Yeah. I think they were at El Questro Station or something last time I saw it.
Yeah.
But,
wow.
Yeah.
So is that something that you want to do? Can you imagine doing that kind of lifestyle? I think you said that. I think you said if... So we had these morbid discussions like, what are you going to do if mum dies and you're left with the lot? And you're like, well, I'll probably sell the house and fuck off and never see you again.
Yeah, see ya.
Yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next life. That's it. The next time I'll contact you will be through my lawyer.
I think I'm probably, I'm tied here because of you and your sister and the kids.
Okay.
Yeah. I love living here too, but at the same time, if I had nothing tying me here, I would probably keep the house. I'm not spend $500,000 on a vehicle that's going to drive me around, and then $500,000 on fuel for the next 10 years. I'd be more inclined to do the 3 or 4 months a year of every winter. Head north.
Rent out the house.
Yeah.
Right? Just get income whilst you're away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, our neighbours have done that. Yeah. They've been away for 3 months.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because I just can't imagine being in a position you're in currently when we retire. So do you think, is the average Australian in your position when they retire? Do you think you have it better than a lot of average Aussies?
I don't know what average means, but I do as a statistician. I know exactly what it means, but I don't. I couldn't define an average Australian, I think is what I'm talking about. But we're in a reasonable position because we started off behind the 8 ball because we were both students when we got married, and we were students for a long time, and then I was working. And then when you kids were born, your mum was working part-time for a while. So it probably took us until our mid-30s for us to be both working full-time.
Wow.
But from that time on, we've both worked.
Yeah.
I've been in and out of work. I've retired resigned from a couple of jobs and just been self-employed for a couple of years twice. But I was still working and still earning money. But we were putting money into super. We both were fortunate to work for the university sector. Your mum for 35 years, me for 12 years, full-time, for off and on in other places, part-time, which gave us the loaded superannuation. You don't get paid a great salary, but you do get a superannuation.
Yeah.
We're in a fortunate position that we've got enough money to survive on, but we're not wealthy. We're not,
But it's one of those things that's relative, right? I think if you had the average person listening to this podcast understand the position you're in, the person that the average back home in their country is probably not the equivalent, right?
No.
And so it is one of those things that it's interesting when talk. I guess it's another conversation about what wealth is and what wealth is, but it is and I see you guys as very wealthy, but you would obviously, everyone looks above and sees everyone else as, gaining it. But yeah, it is. I wonder how we're going to go, my wife and I, and my generation in general, as to getting to the same position that you guys are in.
Yeah.
And if that is the peak, because, Rome died, right? Exactly. All good things come to an end. So you wonder when it's going to start going downhill and if we'll notice.
Yeah.
If we're the first generation where that's going to take place.
Yeah, look, it'll be harder. No question.
Yeah.
It'll be harder. And I think partly that's not it. Partly it's economy, but partly it's our society has changed.
Yeah.
Expectations have changed, therefore supply has changed, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
When we bought our first house, which
Yep.
we still own, the house you grew up in as a young child before we moved down here, it was a 2-bedroom cement sheet shack.
I was having this conversation today with someone, and they were saying the same thing of like, well, we were talking about housing in, Australia, in particular where we live in Lewis and Clifton Springs. And he was like, yeah, my parents, grew up in a 2-bedroom house, and they were like, you could easily afford one of these. And he's like, there are none around.
They don't exist.
No one builds a 2-bedroom house anymore.
They certainly don't build them now. They build 2-bedroom apartments.
Yeah, in Melbourne, or the city.
And that's the problem now, is that because we went through this growth phase of expectation, people wanted to buy and were happy to spend money to buy, particularly when interest rates were very low.
Yeah.
When you were paying 2.5%-3% interest on a mortgage, you could borrow money, effectively as much money as the bank would lend you. And people wanted the 5-bedroom house with the triple garage and the 3 bathrooms and
why wouldn't you, right?
Everything else.
As big as you can get.
And therefore, that's what developers built.
Yeah.
And now that's all you can buy.
Well, and that's it. If you drive around this estate, which is one of these more modern ones.
Try finding a 3-bedroom house.
There'd be some, but there wouldn't. The average one is 4.
I know.
The average one is going to be 4. And it'll probably be this size or bigger.
Yeah.
Because the one we were renting around the corner was bigger than this.
Yeah.
And it was a 4-bedroom, but it had 2 living spaces. You look on. I remember looking on when we were trying to find a place to buy, and it was just all 4 bedrooms. Some 5, some 3, but there's probably as many 5-bedroom places as 3.
Yeah,
and so the average, unless it's an apartment or a
unit.
Unit, yeah, exactly. But it'll be interesting to see if that adjusts, and you would imagine the pressures will be that not enough people are buying houses or paying for houses to be built anymore at the current scale that the plans are. And so you're going to have a lot of these developers have to be like, okay, well, we're going to have to downsize at least the size of the house.
Yes.
Well, we're going to have to minimize costs. If the average person can't afford these houses anymore, how do we bring that down? And apparently Australia's at an all-time low of new house builds, whilst at an all-time high of immigration.
Yeah.
And so the pressure on the housing market is crazy right now, but you're just sort of like, how do we get out of this? Especially if the government's not doing a great deal.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I think that longer term, there's going to be a reconciliation of the economic situation where we're going to have to go through this monster change and it's housing. That's the expensive part.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had this discussion before. Going into medium density dwellings, not necessarily high rise.
You think UK type thing? Because they have a lot of, is it late 19th century, early 20th century buildings where they have these sort of like 2-story houses, but there's usually a person living on top and a person living on bottom.
Yeah.
And there's just streets of those,
and they're terraced houses. There's no gap between them.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
it's
is
sort of like old Melbourne.
Which is funnily enough what Melbourne was
Sydney.
built in Melbourne and Sydney were built in the 19th century. That was what people thought housing looked like. And so I look at that as sort of semi-medium density, although each of them was a separate block of land, albeit smaller, because everybody had their own backyard, and the backyard backed onto a laneway and so on. Now, ironically, those laneways were there for a different purpose. They were there so the poo collector could walk down here with his horse and cart, because the Thunderbox toilet was the outhouse was right down the backyard.
Oh, Jesus.
But I think that medium density housing where you don't have your own backyard, and maybe you're in a smaller house, smaller footprint. Houses will be 2-story; they'll be smaller footprints, and maybe you have 6 houses with a shared space that's got a playground or barbecue area and stuff that everybody can use.
It's funny because I think if we had that option, if that was already built, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that, especially if the area is larger than your backyard would have otherwise been.
Exactly, and that's what it is.
Then you kind of like it's shared, but
it's bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've got a big play area. You're not going to buy $100,000 play equipment.
No.
But if it's built in for 6 people to share as part of the deal.
Well, and also the social aspect. I wonder how much, because it is one of those interesting things, and the topic's going all over the shop today, but I always think, I don't fucking know my neighbours. Like, I don't know the people over the fence.
I know.
Especially on the other side where they're backing onto the other street.
Yeah,
and
no
yet
idea.
I hear children out there, and I hear, they're Noah and Joey's age, my kid's age.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if we just had a shared space, you wonder how much that would actually help.
There and you'd have 1 or 2 adults supervising a bunch of kids herring around. But we do have this Australian dream. We're locked into the Australian dream that came from the middle of the 20th century, post Second World War, of everybody wanted to own their quarter-acre block.
Yeah.
Ironically, the blocks are no longer quarter-acre; they're smaller. They're 1/5 of an acre as such.
Yeah.
Well, nobody understands what an acre is anymore, but it used to be that standard block. And cat wandering around in your backyard.
Yeah, it happens. Is it
It's a tabby.
brown one?
Yeah, brown tabby.
Fucking neighbours.
Spraying on the barbecue.
The lady's always like, oh no, she doesn't go into anyone's yard. And you're like, I've seen it in my fucking yard. Like, I've got photos of it in my fucking... What do you mean? How do you know what it's doing? You're at work,
I know,
you silly
I love that.
bat.
Yeah, I know. These people are weird.
Yeah. Oh no, my
weird
cat
about
doesn't
cats.
do that. Okay, all right.
Where were we?
Yeah.
So there you go. You've got somebody else's cat in your backyard.
the cat's
Whereas
shared.
with shared space, it's a shared cat.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the neighbours recently, and they're like, I've been trying to coax it inside so I can keep it. Like, please,
That's how we got our first cat. She adopted us.
Tell me if you do.
She was probably somebody else's cat, but she was effectively a stray in the inner suburbs of Melbourne, and just walked into our house one day and stayed.
Yeah, this place is nice, better than where I come from.
And then she had kittens in our garage out the back.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as then when she brought the kittens back,
that was when
took
she
them
made
away
the
after a couple of weeks, brought them back, and we thought, they're ours now. Off to the vet.
This is your problem.
Get fleed, deloused,
Anyway.
vaccinated.
So
retirement.
what's the plan? How long does it last? Do you just keep doing what you're doing? Are you bored yet? Like, tell me about it.
Keep doing what you're doing until you can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been doing fuck all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sweet
Pretty
FA.
much.
Sweet fuck all. You've just been driving around, chilling out, day to day, just watching TV, watching the shows and sports, and then hanging out with Ralph.
Yeah. Going for walks, photographing birds.
Yep. Living the dream.
Doing a bit more travelling. So I'm about to go away for 3 weeks. So
yeah, I know. You're
heading off into New South Wales and Queensland.
Are there any
photographing
regrets?
birds.
Do you miss working?
Oh, I miss working. I missed the work that I did 40 years ago. I miss teaching.
The social aspect? Or
Socialising. I just miss teaching. I really enjoy it, which is why I still teach. The odd, class, 8-hour class every term at the local community centre because I just enjoy interacting with people.
I know. That was one thing recently, like I've started up private lessons again.
Yeah.
Free ad to you guys. Send me an email. But I didn't realise how much as someone who works from home, I missed, being able to talk to other human beings during the day and just how emotionally and mentally healthy it is, I think, to do that. When you're at home all the time just creating content, but you're sort of by yourself, besides doing the Goss sort of episodes. It's just, you don't realise how lonely you're getting. And it's almost like it's a crisis in this current society with how lonely the average person is, despite probably, living in countries that have never been more populated than they are currently, right? Like Australia's probably never had more people in it than today. Obviously, it's like that every day at the moment into the future. But we have this loneliness epidemic, right?
Being lonely in a crowd.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. And it's funny because it's one of those things where I feel like I want to make so many connections with people, but it's just so hard, especially as an adult. Like I'm so happy Kel's been able to do it and meet lots of mums and click with them, and they've created their own social group. But it's like, even when you meet the dads and the other, they're nice people, but there's just you need something extra there to click over.
Yeah, if the only thing you've got in common is your kids.
Yeah, whereas like a lot of the, Kel goes out and they do their nails together. They went to yoga together yesterday. They like doing stuff, going out and having food at different restaurants. I'm not really getting my nails done and doing yoga very often.
For a long time, you haven't been into sport.
No.
And that's a lot of that is
I like doing it, just not
either
watching.
going to sport or doing it. So people go, oh, let's go and have a game of tennis or a game of golf, or let's go to the football or whatever.
Yeah.
You go, I'm not going to go and play
Yeah,
golf.
I'm like, I'd rather sit at home in a cold room in the dark. No, but I probably need to be more open to it. I've thought about that recently, and I'm like, maybe I just need to do it for the social aspect. I don't give a shit about the sport. I can probably pretend. And then just
And look, some of it,
out.
I think, is you don't even have to plan it. I mean, I've done it a few times, but haven't done it much recently. If you just Saturday afternoon go down to the local football club and watch the game, and have a beer, hang over the fence, and yell at a few idiots on the ground, and somebody will come up next to you and go, "Yeah, he's an idiot." Go,
Oh, we're mates. Yeah. I know.
But it's. I think in retirement it's harder as well, and retirement's a bit. Well, you've effectively retired into employment, retired into self-employment from having been a student where you're surrounded by people all day, every day, and then went straight into self-employment.
It is weird having my sort of a job where it's not really hour intensive.
No.
Like I don't have to be in a specific location for 8 hours a day on a daily basis.
Oh, you will now. You're taking private lessons.
I just jinx myself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just different. Like I'll be up talking to my team or whatever at fucking 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And so there's a trade-off. But there are definite aspects that I enjoy. Just being able to wake up and be like, well, guess I don't feel like working today. Or I get to drink a beer and have a chat, and that's it.
Yes.
Anyway, this one's gone for quite a while.
Right.
But thanks for hanging out, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I have no idea what we were talking about. Probably nothing in relation to the original
Grey Nomads,
topic.
Dad.
Grey Nomads, retirement.
That's it.
Supermarkets.
See ya.
Bye.